Hello everybody, my name is John Mark Johnson Jr. I'm the host of Reformed GGA, and today I'm going to be doing a follow-up video on the initial impressions video that I did for the Primary Arms 3X Prism Scope. This little guy right here. I still don't have the gun that I eventually plan on putting this thing on, which is annoying, but the reason why I'm doing this continuation here, this next video in the series, if you will, is because Primary Arms actually commented on the last video that I did, and I wanted to respond to that comment. It's not very often that major companies or practically anyone of any note comments on my videos at all, because my channel is a very small channel and kind of incidental to a lot of things. Not exactly the most entertaining thing in the world, and I'm very well aware of that. For people who are confused about that, this channel was not set up to entertain people. This channel was set up so that I could share things that I found out and also my opinions on certain things with people who were interested. It is a fairly narrow range of people that are interested in what I do, and so I don't really expect anyone of note, or especially a lot of the companies, to actually take anything that I say or do as being something overly serious or necessary to interact with. And so when someone of note or a company decides to interact with my stuff, I tend to take that fairly seriously, just because it is a very rare thing. For example, a while back I suggested that Paul Harrell do a video on the Fort Scott 9mm 80 grain solid copper spun bullets, and he actually did so, and we had a little bit of an interchange, and he made a video in response to my suggestion, and it was a really cool interaction. That doesn't happen with my channel very often, and I'm very thankful when people that are of greater note and companies and whatnot actually take the time to interact, and I view it as being a polite and respectful thing to actually appreciate their time, because I know that a lot of them are very busy, they have other things to be doing. If they're going to take the time to interact with me, it is good to at least respond. So I'm going to go ahead and read the comments, and if I remember, I'm going to try to throw a screenshot up here so that you guys can see what they said. But I'll go ahead and read the comment here. It's a very short comment. So, on the original video, Primary Arms LLC commented and said, set the diopter ring to see the reticle. Also, you're not going to see the BDC indoors like that. For home defense, use the donut. This comment, I understand to a certain extent why Primary Arms wanted to give it. If you guys remember my original video, I was comparing the 3X that I just got with the 2X that I've been using for a while on my AK from Palmetto State Armory. And was basically saying that the reason why I got this is because I wasn't entirely satisfied with the 2X primary arm scope that I've been using for a while now. And I pointed out a few things about this one to start off with that I wasn't particularly fond of. The big thing being a fact that the reticle in this one is fairly small, and I have a hard time resolving it. And so Primary Arms' response to that was, well, you need to adjust the diopter, this little ring on the back, so that it works with your eye. And I understand why Primary Arms is saying that, because they want people to have the best experience with their optics, and they do try very hard to make their optics satisfy as wide a range of people as they can, and that's why they have a diopter on this thing, is so that you can adjust it to your personal needs. And you will see here that the diopter is not in the all the way closed position. This one has been opened up a little bit because I actually have set it to my eye as per the instructions that came with the optic. The problem though, and this isn't any fault with Primary Arms whatsoever, the problem though is that I just have really bad eyes. So even if I set this diopter to the correct setting as per the instructions and the original material, making it something that you can bring up relatively quickly, get it so that it's as clear as possible, making sure that you have the right eye relief, etc., etc. even at that, my eyes are such that in order to correctly resolve this reticle, I have to be pretty much in one exact spot behind the optic in order to get it to resolve properly. So let me see here, just to try to get this in contrast for you guys. So trying to get it to the exact place is about, oh no, that's a little too close. It's kind of a picky thing for me. Yeah, there's only one spot and I can't always find it, and it's especially hard to do indoors. And of course, Primary Arms talked about that, the fact that indoors you're not going to see a lot of the fine detail, and that would be expected, of course, and I didn't say otherwise, but they still wanted to point that out. But yeah, about right there is about where it needs to be. And like I said, it's one very precise spot that has to be in order for it to work with me, and that's just because I have really bad eyesight. So I can take the time to set the diopter ring and get everything optimized as much as I can, but still, in order to get it properly resolved, I have to be in one exact place behind that optic. Now, if I'm doing stuff that's fairly close range and I don't really need a high level of precision, it actually has a pretty forgiving eye box in that sense. But if I need to use it precisely, there's only basically one spot behind that optic that I can be and it actually do what I need it to do. And I can get it to do what I need it to do if I take the time to find that one exact right spot. Just as an example, yesterday I was out shooting my AK, and this was the group that I got. These 4 shots right here, this top hole is actually 2 shots close together, but these 4 shots, and then I threw one over here, and that's me, I typically throw a shot, but this was at 100 yards. This main group right here is about 1 1/8 inches, which for an AK-47 is pretty good. I can actually shoot the AK pretty well if I find that one exact spot behind the reticle that just works for me. And just so you guys have an idea of what I'm dealing with here, it is this gun right here. Obviously I don't have the optic on it, I just showed you the optic separately. But it is the Palmetto State Armory AK-47 GF3. This is the gun that I used yesterday, and for the main group, got a 1 1/8 inch group size. I can use that optic to very good effect. And frankly, a 1 1/8 inch group at 100 yards for an AK is pretty stinking good. Now, granted, there are a few people out there that could do better than that, okay, and totally respect them, and there's certainly a lot of people out there that could deal with shooting the gun at range far better than I can. I don't usually deal with great range. About 200 yards is about as far as I'll ever shoot. Occasionally I'll push it a little bit past that, but 200 yards and in is usually what I do. And so I'm not really good with bullet compensation and those kinds of things, and frankly I don't really worry about it that much. Just for what I intend that gun for and what I use that gun for, 200 yards and in is perfectly sufficient for what I do, and I don't really worry about much beyond that. But my problem with that particular optic, even though I can use it well and get really good results out of it, it is exceptionally difficult for me to find that one exact place that my head has to be in order for it to work out just right. If I can find that space, I can get awesome groups. But if not, my groups open up. Let me show you what I mean. This is from an earlier shooting session. Well, I guess that would be last year now, back in 2020. And both of these targets were at 50 yards, not 100. And the one that is on my left, you'll see I have, again, 4 shots that are pretty close to each other. One that's outside of that, and a little bit of a flyer, and like I said, that's typical for me. And part of it is just how difficult that reticle is to resolve. Getting that chevron in that 2X optic, little 2X optic, I like it in a lot of ways. It's nice, it's lightweight, I can make it work for me, but like I said, there's just one exact spot behind this optic that I can be in order for it to work properly. And if I'm in that spot, I can get a pretty good group. This flyer, part of it is me jerking the trigger, but also part of it is going to be just the fact that sometimes I don't always take the time to properly make sure I'm in the right spot behind the optic, and I'll wind up throwing around because of that. The other group shot the same day from the same gun using the same ammunition. This one over here. This group here is considerably larger. Now, as far as, the rings, most of these are at least in the inner touching the 10 ring, and so it's not like it would be ineffective. At 50 yards you wouldn't expect it to be, but it did open up considerably, and the reason why is because on this one I wasn't taking my time to make sure my head was in the exact right place behind the optic. For me, just because of how bad my eyes are, even when I have the diopter correctly set, the eye box is not nearly as forgiving as I would like when it comes to precision shooting. Like I said, if I'm just trying to make sure, I hit the target somewhere on the whole target at relatively close range, doing a raise and shoot kind of snap shooting thing, it's perfectly sufficient. And so I don't have any problems with it that way. The problem, though, is how easy is it to get precision shots. And like I said, unless my head is in the exact right place behind it, my shots will open up. But if I find the right place behind the optic, I can get pretty stellar groups out of it. That's what I meant when I said that the chevron is difficult, or maybe I said the reticle. The reticle or the chevron for precision shooting, you'd want to use the chevron. That's what I meant when it's difficult to resolve. I didn't say that I can't resolve it at all, that there's no diopter setting that works for me or something like that. No, they did a good job of making an optic that could be at least usable for a very wide range of people, and that's what these diopters allow you to do, and that's why most of the optics companies out there will put a diopter on their optic, because they want it to be useful for multiple people. The problem, though, is that my eyes are so bad and they have such a hard time focusing on different things. I have awful eyesight. In fact, even if I cover up one eye and I look at something relatively close, I'll see it double even if one eye is closed. I can get double vision from a single eye, which is really bad. And that causes lots of problems when I look through an optic, especially one that has a chevron as small as this 2X does. That's not a dig on primary arms at all. Okay, I realize that I probably needed to word that better in my original video, and I'm sorry for that. It wasn't my intention at all to say that this is a bad product. That is more the fact that I have a difficult time resolving the reticle, and especially that chevron, for precision aiming. It's not a reflection on primary arms at all. They did the best that they could in making something that was adaptable for a wide range of people. The problem is my eyesight is so bad that a reticle that is that small, like I said, I'll see double with a single eye. And if it's not large enough to account for what my eyes do weirdly, adjusting the diopter, you can adjust it all day long, but if your eyes are bad enough, it's not going to help. That doesn't mean that the product is bad. It just means that I have an eye problem that is really difficult to deal with. That's not a dig on primary arms. It's just that my eyes are bad enough that this size of reticle can't really work all that well. And frankly, I don't know if the larger reticle in the 3X is going to completely solve that, but I do know that looking through it, there's a whole lot less eye fatigue. And yes, I have messed with the diopter on this one as well, because that's what the instructions say to do, and so I adjust it. Try to take the cap off here. And you'll be able to see a little bit of the black ring there. I have adjusted the diopter. It is not as in its original close-in factory setting. I do adjust them like I would with any optic. I'm very well aware of how to do that. It's just that with my eyes, a lot of times it winds up being a very particular place that I have to be in order for everything to work. And frankly, especially if I'm trying to shoot relatively quickly, it doesn't work out. Like I said, same gun, same ammunition, same day, same shooter, but how careful am I being behind the optic on finding the right place to make everything turn out right and making sure that everything's lined up correctly? If I'm careful, I can get really awesome groups. If I am not so careful, here on my right, well, then the groups open up quite a bit, and that's frustrating. What I'm hoping is that the larger reticle will take care of that. Even if I do a little bit more snap shooty-ish type things, yeah, your accuracy is not going to be as good just because you're shooting fast. You expect that to happen. But I'm hoping that I can shrink that group size down at least a little bit, even when I'm snap shooting, even when I'm not being super careful about exactly where my eye is behind that optic. It's not meant to be a diss on primary arms at all. It's just the reality of me having really terrible eyesight. And then, okay, so after they say set the diopter ring to see the reticle, I already knew that, I already did that. It's just that my eyes are so bad that it's a very specific spot that it works. And, you know, it is what it is on that. If your eyes are bad enough, the best device in the world is just not going to work all that well for you. Okay? That's not to say that the primary arms 2x scope is a terrible optic. It's just that my eyes are bad enough that it's not going to work very well for me. Then primary arms goes on to say also you're not going to see the BDC indoors like that. In that original video, I don't think I said that you could see the BDC indoors, or that you should try to, especially on the 2X. Now on the 3X, I can see the BDC just fine. Even indoors, it's not a big problem at all. But I don't remember saying that on the 2X you could, so I'm not sure why primary arms felt the need to say that, unless they're just trying to give a general qualification for anyone that might read the comments so that they know what to expect, perhaps. But yeah, on a small prism scope like that with low magnification, if you have a BDC in there, yeah, it's not going to show up very well indoors. So, completely agree with them on that. I don't think I said anything to the contrary in the original video, but if you're expecting it, yeah, you shouldn't expect it, not with a 2X. And then they go on to say, for home defense, use the donut. And I'm not entirely sure where this came in, because I didn't say not to use the donut or anything like that. I did mention with the 3X that if you want to use it as a CQB type optic, that you could use it as an occluded eyesight. Open up the front cover, turn on the illumination, and you'll be able to see the reticle in there. And if you leave the other eye open, your brain will automatically interpose the target with the reticle that you're seeing in the other eye, and you can get effective hits that way. I didn't really say anything about whether or not you should use the aiming chevron or the donut or anything like that. Maybe they were thinking it was with reference to the 2X, which I didn't say that either. And is that the only way that you could use this at CQB? Of course not. You could open it up and use it, but my problem is that my eyes are bad enough that having to adjust between that magnification and non-magnification really stresses my eyes out, and it makes it very difficult for me to focus. That's just how bad my eyes are. And so using the sight as an occluded eyesight takes the magnification out of the way, because if I leave the front lens cap down, I'm not going to perceive a difference in level, basically. I'm not going to really have to account for magnification anymore. That would be better for me. But it is perfectly fair to say that that's not going to be the case with everybody. Other people, especially with time and training, could account for that magnification much easier, and for them, leaving both lens caps up and dealing with that close range and using the donut as primary arm suggests would be totally sufficient, and I don't have any qualms with that. I'm just saying that for me, because of how bad my eyesight is and the extra strain of having to deal with magnification in a close quarter situation, I would rather use it with lens cap down, illumination on as an occluded eyesight. Alright, so that was primary arms concerns, comments. Just wanted to address it. Okay, so setting the diopter ring to see the reticle. Like I said, I already knew that, and I can do it, and I can get pretty good results out of it. Like I said, I can get very tight groups even with an AK. Yeah, like I said, this was yesterday, and the main group, not counting my flyer, but the main group is 1 1/8 inches, which with an AK is pretty stellar accuracy. I can definitely make the sight work for me if I slow down and I find that one right spot. It's just I don't like to have to slow down and find that one right spot. That's what I'm hoping the 3X does for me, is it gives me a little bit more cushion, I hope. So yeah, that wasn't, I don't feel really accurate to what I actually said in the video. And then when Primary Arms says you're not going to see the BDC indoors like that, I never claimed that you could or would. So I'm not really sure what that's relevant to, but, you know, FYI, I guess. And then for home defense, use the donut. Again, I don't think I said anything against using the donut. I did mention that you could use it as an occluded eyesight, and that was my general recommendation, and it probably shouldn't have been. I recommended what I would do just because of my eye issue, but of course not everyone has the eye issues that I do, and so using an open lens cap might be the better solution for you. And I probably should have qualified that. But hey, it is what it is, and thank you very much, Primary Arms, for taking the time to actually look at the video, and hopefully we've all learned a little bit more about the Primary Arms Prism scopes as a result of this. I don't really disagree with anything that Primary Arms said. Yeah, set the diopter. Yeah, on the 2x scope you're not going to see the BDC indoors very well, that's a given. And at close range, yeah, you should use the donut as your primary aiming tool. I don't disagree with any of that. Not really sure how that's relevant to my original video, but it is what it is. Thank you all very much for your time and attention. For those of you who are in Christ, go with God and be blessed. For those of you who are not, I pray that you would come to know the true Christ of history, the only genuine Savior of mankind. Amen.